Good morning, I'm Kevin Masson. Kingdom Metalworks is my business, and what we do is like to instruct young people and older. If you want to learn how to do metal shaping, I do it old school. So in this short video, I'm going to take a flat sheet of metal and just show you how to make a panel from flat sheet to a panel that fits the butt section right here. So what we're going to do is pull up the part that I've already worked on, shown how it goes in, and we get a nice click fit. So I just basically have to hold that in the right position and everything is nice and solid through the panel. So you can see how something like this could be very useful. A rust repair on an existing truck fender or a rear fender or on a car, rear quarter, whatever that might be. This is just a teardrop trailer fender that I'm part of what I make up is in alloy. But today I'm going to use steel because repair panels on a lot of the vehicles, especially out here in Kentucky and the neighborhood around, they like to use steel. So here we go. So I'm just going to cut off the bulk of material using the shear. It's the easiest way to do it. That way we've got lots of little welding coupons for later on. Just taking it to the line and then getting it ready to trim in. There we go. So now that we've cut majority of the material off, we are now going to trim in with the snips. So here we have a pair of left and right aviation snips. I'm just going to take the snips and now trim out all the way on the line so that it's an accurate piece. It just comes off like this. So that's what we're going to do right now. It's a little bit more time consuming than using a Beverly shear, but I'm old school. So for me it works well, just doing it with the snips. Keeps those forearms nice and tight too. So there we have the first cut, and we're now going to go in for the back cut. That's why I like to trim the majority of the material off. Makes it a little easier with the snips. A little bit harder work. As you can see, it comes off in quite a nice size chunk. But so now we get to the end and we've got ourselves a panel. So now we have the panel. We'll be able to move to the next stage, which is important to me because I don't like you to wear gloves when I'm English wheeling. So I just take myself a small knife, deburr tool, and deburr it. So having done that, we now place it on there and we just deburr around the edges. And that takes off all the sharp edges and allows us a panel that is smooth, nice on the edges, and not going to cut our fingers. So now we have the panel. The next stage to go to is to go into the lead shot bag and bead in our shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the panel up and give me a reference point, just to say, okay, so this is where I'm going to put most of the shape into the panel, which is probably right in this section from here across to here, and that's going to create this shaping all the way through. So having said that, we'll work that out. We'll place it in so that we've got enough material overhanging the edge, because we're going to be putting a wide edge down here if we need one, if not just a folded edge, depending on the type of fender. So we'll mark that on. So there's my target zone on the material, just in here, and this is the part I'm going to shape up with the mallet on the lead shot bag. So let's walk over to the lead shot bag and do the next stage. Okay then, so here we have a bossing mallet, just a Delrin bossing mallet. I like these for doing the steel, a little bit nicer than a wooden one. So anyways, we have a lead shot bag, and the lead shot bag, it's a nice thick Latigo leather. I have these made up special. They're thicker leather, and then they don't split while you're beading on them, especially with the steel and the edges of the steel. And the lead shot allows the metal to stretch and form so much nicer than sandbags. That's why I prefer a lead shot bag rather than a sandbag. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the arch in the sandbag, and I need a nice flattish area. So all I do first is just detail reference. So now I've got the indentation exactly where I'm going to stretch, and I'm going to target zone down and then just put some shape into the panel. Notice I'm trying to keep the panel as flat as possible, going through the sandbag and not allowing it to curl up too much. And then we get a waffle edge on the outside, and I want to try and maintain this edge fairly flat, fairly smooth. I don't want to just keep on beating on this and make this into a constant U shape. So as I'm dressing along, you can see that I'm dressing onto the side of the mallet and utilizing the side of the mallet to bring that into the right reference. As you can see, the waffling continues. We're trying to keep the panel as flat and as level as possible as we're going through the shaping. So we just continue. We can come around the other way. A little bit of manipulation is sometimes required, so we just get it to conform exactly as we want it. As you can see, as I push down on the two ends, the sides come up, and it's starting to form into the right configuration, and we're getting the lumps and bumps and all the stretching going on. And this is the areas that are going to be sort of having to be shrunk. Trying to maintain this relatively flat, because that is what the shape is on the buck. So once again, a little bit of hand manipulation brings everything in nicely. So we don't want the panel getting out of control right at the very beginning. So we're just going to continue with our stretching. So now you can see we have a relatively flattish panel with waffle edge on the top, and a slightly waffled on the bottom, but we want to maintain that flatness like I'm saying, so we just manipulate the panel a little bit, show little techniques just to pull this in, just to bend it down. It forms, it's nice soft material. So now you can see that I've started to get the right shape through the panel. Got a little bit of flatness to it, not too many waffles on the bottom edge, but we've got the waffles on the top, which I'm going to adjust. A little bit of adjustment is just to blend in so that these aren't so lumpy and bumpy, ready for the English wheel. To me, that's the fun part of the panel, just beating the heck out of it, having some fun, de-stressing, getting the panel to lie just right. Now from here, we're going to blend a little bit more just on the bottom edge. Like I say, we're just going to try and get it more uniform. Light taps. And there we have it. We are now ready to jump into the English wheel, and I'm going to use the full-sized wheel with the flat top wheels in it just to iron out most of the shape, and then later on I'll show you the smaller bench top wheel, but for right now this is where we're at. There you go. So here we have the panel that we talked about being flat through here. This is the part that needs to be ironed out. And like I said, I'm going to use the full-sized English wheel. It's got flat top wheels to it, and then that's part of a class that we do. You know, part of my enjoyment of doing metal shaping is to do classes because, you know, the expression on people's faces when they accomplish a panel that would be difficult for them normally, it just makes it my day. You know, that's what I'm all about, is educating and handing down a metal shaping legacy. I've been doing it for 40 years. Started off in England in AC cars with some metal masters, 4 of them. So we were doing Cobra bodies and doing a lot of alloy work, but since then I've been working in several different places in the United States, mainly California though, and we work a lot more with steel. So either one is easy to work with, it's just slightly different one to the other. I love the English wheel, that's my preference. And so here we go, we're just going to adjust the wheel down to give it a light pressure, just a little bite, just to smooth things out and take out all the lumpy and bumpies at the same time as give it some reference in the shape. So here we go. I'm going to walk around the other side of the wheel just to get this tail end. They're always changing different sides of the wheel. You get accustomed to it, you get used to it. It's just one of those things where being left-handed or right-handed you can overcome that, but it is nice to be able to work both sides of the wheel and get yourself adjusted in. So now you can see that the stretch marks and everything that I put in there with the bossing mallet on the lead shot bag, I've blended and smoothed a lot of those out. The waffles are still there. So as you can see, we just shaped out all the rough areas. We've got the ironed out portion We've still got our waffles in the top edge, which help it maintain this relatively flat shape through here. I don't want this becoming like this or like this. So now I'm going to up the pressure just a little bit and then just take out the rest of those. And as I do so, I'm going to go closer and closer to the edge. And as you notice, it's starting to run a lot smoother through the English wheel, ironing out all the differences in the shaping. And the idea is that I'm going to keep my blow marks fairly close together. And then we just do a little bit of adjustment on the panel to maintain the flatness to it. As you can see, we have a few waffles in it, but we're relatively straight and we're getting this panel to come over. So I'm going to tighten up the pressure a little bit more. I'm going to rub in some more shape. And the more shape I put in this area here, the more the waffles start coming out on the edge, because I'm placing shape into the panel. It's always fun wheeling on a curved shape, but you get used to it. Just takes practice. So there we have it. We have our shape. We're maintaining the right angle on the panel. We want to keep it uniform, try and get rid of our loose edges. And we're starting to come in with a relatively flat panel. It's a lot smoother, as you can see. We have a few little ribs in there. Even though this is a high crown wheel, it still has the flat top. So that would entail some cross wheeling for me to run across that and start doing it if I was to continue in this wheel. But what I thought might be fun is to go to the smaller English wheel with a full radius on the lower anvil, which would allow me to continue doing the same momentum and shaping up and getting it to fit and conform to the buck shape that I need. So I've been doing this by eye. I'm going to walk over to the buck right now and then find out what high crown wheel I'm going to utilize through the panel. So there you have it. The difference between full-sized and the smaller English wheel is that this one can handle a lot more thickness on the material. You can go to 18 gauge or even more, but they are expensive and not everyone can afford one, especially most of the students that come in doing classes. They all have small workshops and they want to learn on machinery they can afford. So I also go out to workshops and I can do a class with your crew doing panel shaping on your projects, just to move your projects forward, utilizing your equipment. So that's another aspect to the business. It's kind of fun because you never know what you're going to come up against in projects, and you don't know the machinery of other companies, but it's always fun working with the crew that work in the shops. So here we have the wooden buck, and what I do is I got to this stage and I need to fit it up. I need to see where am I with my shaping, and as you can see, it's not a bad fit altogether. It just needs a little bit more shaping to come in through here, which will then take care of the waffles that are on the outside, leaving those for the last sort of escape part to the panel on keeping it nice and flat through this plane here. The more I take these out, the more the panel wants to come reverse curve. So I'm going to try and maintain and keep it, and then stretch from here and blend out and blend out and blend out to get this to be more uniform shape. Like I said, I was going to use the bench top wheel. It's a smaller wheel, smaller anvils, and it's ideal for a panel of this size. So now we have it to this stage, and as you can see, it's relatively flat, relatively smooth, getting into the right configuration. I'm now going to use a radius gauge, a little bit of a cheater, because it makes it so much easier to be able to put the radius gauge against the part where I'm putting that shape through. And on the radius gauge, it reads at a number 4. Comes down to, oh yeah, still 4. So it's a number 4 radius all the way through, which is ideal. I'll be able to choose a number 4 radius wheel, or even come down to a number 3 and use lighter pressure. So here we go. We're at the small Mittler Brother wheel. It's a nice wheel in the sense that it's a bench top size, great for smaller panels. And then we're using the radius gauge as a means to be able to get the right wheel for the right shaping. So a lot of people ask me, so what wheel do you use and when do you use it? Why would you use a flat top? Why would you use a high crown? Like I said, I use the flat top in the large wheel because it irons out the lumps and bumps a lot quicker than a full radius. And a full radius is a nice wheel to go with and dial in and get your stretching and shaping more conformed, and it doesn't leave the little ribs of the material when you're running full length of the panel. So therefore, I have flat tops, full set of flat tops that come with the machine, but I also have the full set of high crown radiuses. So each one has its own crowning. So as you can see, we got this one is a number 2, and it fits to the profile, and so in that way it's easy enough to read. I'm going to use the number 3. The number 3 will come in, and I'll be able to utilize that wheel, seeing as the radius, if you remember rightly, was on the buck a number 4. So I'm just going to use lighter pressure on the number 3 to conform it to what I need. So we'll dial this one in, we'll get our pressure set, and we'll continue with our wheeling. So dialing the pressure in is important because you don't want too much pressure all in one go. You want to start off at a point where you've got pressure, you're able to iron and smooth. At the same time, you don't want to crown it too much and put too much shape in. So it's a methodical thing with an English wheel, and it's very progressive. Some people say it's a little bit slower than say a power hammer or a planishing hammer, but you know, I just love it because it's so quiet. You can just relax while you're making a panel, enjoy it coming together, see the shape, get the nice glossiness to it and everything, and it's my favorite way. So anyway, here we go. So we're going to start wheeling just a little bit, and then there's a dial indicator on the bottom that shows me exactly where the pressure is set. If I need more pressure, I just move it around, but that's the target spot, and that gives me where I am with my pressure, so I'm always good coming in and out. If I was making 2 or 3 panels at one time, say, that's what I would have a tendency to do. So now I'm just going to wheel around just stretching, forming the material, going full length of the panel. As you can see, the more I wheel it, the less vibration and less jumping around the panel does in the wheel. So we're still ironing out some of the lumps and bumps that are still in there. You just got to be careful of your fingers as you come around through the edges of the panel. And so this is the area right now that I need to put a little bit more shape in, and as I'm watching it come in, I'm just going to step it up just a little bit more, and now I'm going to start wheeling in more shape. And then I'm going to take out some of the little fluting as I'm going along, getting closer and closer to the edge by putting my shape in, just blending and smoothing. Come down into the next section, do it a little bit closer to the edge, blending and smoothing. And like I say, that just maintains the nice flatness to the panel. So as you can tell, got quite a bit of pressure on there, but you can see that we're starting to smooth, starting to blend, starting to get that shape correct, maintaining a relatively good flatness to it. And so now I'm going to jump over to the stretcher shrinker just to take a little bit of the waffle out, just to tighten that edge up, just so that it brings it over nicely, and it will fit the buck a little better. So I'm going to use the mechanical stretcher shrinker to do that. So here we go. So like I said, we're going to use the mechanical shrinker, and it's also a stretcher depending on the jaws that you put in it. These are the stretching jaws. I have the shrinking jaws in there, and I don't want to stress the panel out too much, so therefore I'm just going to come in with a light shrink on this edge and maybe a light shrink on this edge just to set the panel, get it to be uniform. I'll try it back on the buck after I've done that, see where I'm at, and then finalize with the English wheel. So anyway, here we go. So it's just a procedure of getting into the machine, coming in, doing a little bit of shrinking, taking out the waffles. I'm not using a whole bunch of pressure on it. Like I said, I don't want to stress the panel out. I just want to take out the waffles, and all the shrink marks don't need to be too deep. This is going to be an edge where I'm going to be welding on one panel to another. So therefore, I'm going to want even stress through the panel edges that are going to be welded. So therefore, I don't want to over stress this edge, but I do want to get it in a more uniform manner, get it more flattened out, ready for the English wheel on the finalizing, shaping and the configuration. So just a very light pressure coming in, just a little bit of detail, very light jaw marks on there. It's a great shrinker stretcher. I like the oval jaws on it rather than the square jaws or some of the more conventional ones, so it's my choice. So there you can see I've taken out all the different undulations and the waffles that were on there, and it's more uniform now. I'm then going to come in and just detail on the other side, just a little bit, hardly anything, but the whole idea is to help me maintain the flatness to the panel and have the edges where they're not loosey-goosey, and they're more in a straight line on the wide edge and on the edge that I'm going to weld. They're nice and uniform curved to the buck. So very, very light pressure, like I say, and that took out some of the waffles on that edge, as you can see. So therefore now we're just going to try it on the buck, see where I am with all of that, and now it's just going to be coming to a bit of bending, manipulation, a little bit more English wheeling to be able to finish off the panel. You can see it's relatively smooth. It's got a little wheel marking going on, and so as I dial down the pressure on the wheel, it will come up more glazed and more mirror finished. So there you have it. Okay, so here we are. We're going to try it on the buck. Like I said, we took care of the waffled edge, and it's now a lot tighter to the buck. We've still got a little bit of shaping to do, as you can see, in the right area, just up in through here, but we're relatively flat through here, which is what it needs to be on the buck. So that's the most important part, is keeping this edge relatively flat while we're shaping this over. A little bit of manipulation will help it too. It's nice to have a steel bench to be able to work on, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to bend a little bit of the shape over just to help it. So that's where the panel will become more of a click fit, sitting down and in. So we're getting close, but still needs a little bit more shape in it. So therefore we'll jump into the English wheel and finalize the shaping and the smoothing to get it to conform and fit really well. And the whole idea is that when I place the panel on there, I should be able to hold it with one hand and everything be a click fit. So right now we're needing a little bit more shape in it. So here we have it. We have the panel that is lightly shrunk on the edge, it's more uniform. So now what I'm going to do is come in with lighter pressure and I'm going to just wheel through this. And it's just a process. You just continue wheeling and wheeling and wheeling until the panel has enough shape in it and lays down nicely on the buck. So let's just go with the next process. We're going to come in to the pressure that we had earlier, just to iron out right on that edge. I'm just going to put the shape right in there, just where I wheeled, and that helps normalize the metal, de-stress it just a little bit. So then I'm just going to run backwards and forwards through here. So you can see where the shrink marks were on that edge. I'm not running right to the very edge, I'm running close to the edge, but not right on the edge. And the more I come across and through, the smoother the panel is becoming. So I just helped that area that was right at the very top, brought that over, wheeled in some shape, and I'm traveling the whole length of the panel. And of course, the very ends sometimes just need a little bit of detail work on them just to come in. So I'm going to come down with my pressure to the blending and smoothing section and then just kind of manipulate that last little bit of the panel. As you can see, that takes out some of the end. We'll do a little bit on this end just to detail as well. But those are the sections that I'm going to be welding from one to another. This one needs a little bit more pressure. I'm reading the panel, and that's part of it. Is as you're shaping, as you're doing your panel making, you've got to read the material, especially with steel. Don't let it get out of hand, and you're just basically telling the metal where you want it to go, not where it wants to go. And it all comes down to knowing the shape that you're putting in, how quickly you're putting the shape in, and where the shape's going in to conform. So now the end of the panel is looking a lot nicer too now. So we then come back down with our pressure, and I'm then going to smooth and blend just through nicely. And the more I blend and smooth, the shinier the metal gets, the more accurate the panel becomes. But I'm noticing that all my strike marks, or blow marks, whichever you want to call them, are very, very close together. The closer they are together, the less ribs are going to be in the panel. So now you can see the panels going through the English wheel very smoothly, very nice. The action of a curvature wheeling is a little bit more difficult than the straight wheeling, but just takes a little bit of technique. Something I like to teach people in a class of how to do different style wheeling, whether it be straight flat, whether it be curved, double curvature, reverse curves, all these different things can all be approached on a class. So anyways, here you have it. I'm not going to go too much further because the rest of the time it just takes a lot more time to be able to blend and smooth and make that panel absolutely perfect, mirrored finish. The more polished the top wheel is, the more polished the surface is. So on my full-sized English wheel, you can see it's a lot more polished, and it finalizes. What I could do if I wanted to, I could then come into the English wheel over here and do a little cross wheeling. On a high crown panel like this, cross wheeling is quite nice. Just come in with the right kind of pressure and then just do a little detail work, so to speak, and that just irons out everything. And that's a little technique that lots of people have difficulty doing because it's in such a short range that they have a challenge of keep running out of the wheel. It's a curved panel. It's like, well, how do I do that? So it's all in technique. It's all in practice. But then you can see that it really blends up the panel so much nicer coming in with the cross wheeling too. So we have a panel that's relatively flat through here. Just needs a little bit of manipulation and bending, and continue to wheel. But there you have it. That's the basics of how to make a fender section. Could be a repair section on an old car, truck, whatever, rust area, and you just need to make up a small panel to replace that section. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.